All right. Hello, mortgage professionals. I'm Liz Coiler. I'm the editor of Loan Officer Hub, which is brought to you by MGIC. I am lucky to be joined today by Mandy Phillips. She's a branch manager for Omega Mortgage Group, and I invited her to speak with me because she's really been successful using TikTok for her business. She started a couple of years ago, and now the majority of her leads come from TikTok. So I thought she would have some great insights to share with other loan officers who are thinking about TikTok and about social media in general and how they can really use it to their best advantage. So, Mandy, why don't you get started by just tell us a little more? How did you get into the mortgage industry and then into TikTok?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I got into the mortgage industry by accident, basically. My husband and I own a real estate brokerage, and I was a realtor under him for years. And we constantly had challenges with lenders and getting our files to close on time and just a lack of transparency. And so my husband had this idea to open a mortgage branch. We knew literally nothing, and didn't even occur to us that it might actually be a business in itself. We just wanted to eliminate the pain. He hired a branch manager. We connected with a bank, actually, the bank that I'm still with now. And the branch manager and I both decided we were going to get relicensed. She had done loans in the past prior to needing an NMLS license. So we got licensed together. And 2 days before we were supposed to open, she quit. So I was not supposed to actually do loans, but I like to take classes unnecessarily. So I was going to just get my license just to have it and kind of learn a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, it was congratulations, you've been upgraded. You are now a branch manager. And I could not have been more nervous and panicky over this because it's such a critical part of the real estate transaction.
Yeah, thrown
Um,
into the deep end.
yeah, exactly. So in 2019, got licensed, started actively doing loans in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. I got super busy really fast. Fortunately, I had a fantastic team and tons of support. And the good thing about getting really busy is you learn really quickly. You have to. So that is how I got started.
Wow, that's quite a story. I mean, especially kind of getting going right in 2020. Um,
Yeah.
it's a unique way to get started. So I know it's just a
Yes.
couple years later. How did you get involved with TikTok specifically?
At the time that I decided to start my posting journey, I had already had a couple of social media accounts set up through Facebook and Instagram, but nothing through TikTok,
Hmm.
nothing through YouTube. I decided, however, that I would start with TikTok because no one would know me on TikTok. These aren't my people. These are all young kids. And so I decided to um, come up with a list of questions that I'm asked frequently or mortgage guidelines that people are unaware of. And I would create these videos on TikTok just more as practice for me because I wanted to start posting on Instagram and Facebook, but I didn't feel comfortable putting myself out there like that. So I started just mostly as, to kind of get the awkwardness out, but to get the content created. And if it was something that was decent, I was going to repost it. Well, within maybe 4 to 6 videos, my account actually started gaining quite a bit of traction, which really surprised me. And now that is my biggest lead source.
Wow. It's kind of a crazy story. It really illustrates how the internet and social media and new apps coming up, there's like this frontier where if you jump in, if there's not a lot of competition out there doing the same thing, you can really stand out.
Right.
So you said that you pulled from the most common questions you get as a loan
Mhm.
officer. How do you decide what content to post, especially as you've kind of moved forward? And what's been the most effective for you in generating leads? I know you and I discussed there's kind of two types of content. There's the more bread and butter, and then there's more like
Yes.
personality. So what's the balance for you?
So it again kind of started, with me just wanting to create content more so because I was tired of answering the same questions over and over. So I created this list and I started to, check them off one by one. But what really, the video that took off first was more of a skit video. And that is still to this day the type of video that gets the most views and boosts my follower count. Every time I
Mhm.
post a skit video, they tend to be the better performing videos. However, no one is working with me because I'm, wearing a Karen wig and talking about something ridiculous that I encountered. They're following me because of that, and then they're learning something because I've posted, a mortgage guideline or tips and tricks or educated them on the overall home buying process. So those are the types of videos that definitely generate the most qualified leads. And so it's important to have a mix of the two so that you have people that are wanting to engage with you and get to know your personality, but also provide them real value so that they understand that you are in fact the expert, and that's been working really well for me.
That sounds amazing. It also sounds like it could be a lot of work. So how much time do you spend each week creating and posting that content on TikTok, other social platforms? And does that involve how much time is involved with responding to comments or engaging with other people's content on social media for you as well?
So that's a tough one to answer because I actually, there are times when I feel as though I probably spend far too much time on social media.
Hmm.
And if you were to look at my phone and look at I think they measure it now on the iPhones, your screen time, it's probably an embarrassing amount of time. But that's mostly me consuming content and scrolling,
Hmm.
and also responding to comments. However, actually creating, I would say I probably spend no more than 3 hours a week.
Okay.
Um, so it's not overly time consuming. It's just that it's such a rabbit hole. So once you hop on, it's really hard to get off. um,
Oh, I
so
get that.
yeah, I think we all do, which is kind of the danger, but also the great thing about social media. So what I do that works the best for me, and I don't always stick to this schedule, but if I could create my perfect week, what I do is I come into my office on a Sunday because that happens to be my slowest day work wise. And we all probably in this industry work 7 days a week or some variation of it. But Sunday tends to be the slowest. So I come in the afternoon, and usually from about 2 to 5, and I close my office door and I try to batch create at least 4 videos. That way I have something to post for that week. And then I try to post 5 videos a week, 1 video for every weekday. So I kind of leave it up to whatever has transpired during the week to create that one last video. And sometimes that happens on a Monday if there's been some news.
Hmm.
Pop up an article and do a green screen video for that, or something that I've encountered that is worth sharing. The NAR settlement has been big recently. So I do allow myself some creative freedom, but on the other hand, I also take the stress away by trying to just have something ready to post every morning. And I organically post it at 6 a.m. I don't use a posting service.
Mm.
It's just for whatever reason that seems to be my best time. Um, so that's the schedule that works the best for me.
I think it's good for people to hear if you're successful, how much time it takes for you, because I think a lot of loan officers say, I know I should be more involved. It seems like it would be a huge time commitment. So
Mhm.
knowing that, you get the majority of your leads that way, but you don't
Mhm.
spend all day, every day trying to figure out how to do TikTok videos is a
Yeah,
great message. Do
yeah.
you cross post then all of your content, not just on TikTok, but elsewhere? Or do you kind of do specific to the channel?
Okay, that's a great question. I do cross post, but not all of my content.
Okay.
So TikTok allows you to record up to a 10-minute video. I've never recorded a 10-minute video. The longest video I've ever recorded is maybe 3 minutes, which is still a long video. But on YouTube, if you're going for YouTube Shorts, you can only post 60-second or less videos. So the majority of my content tends to be between the 1 and 2 minute mark. So very
Mhm.
few of my videos do I actually post on YouTube. Instagram and Facebook have a 1.5 minute cap for their reels. So I do try to make at least half of my videos fit in that 1.5 minute mark so that I can also cross post there. But the majority of my videos are just created for TikTok. But I am trying to incorporate more that can work across various platforms.
Okay, so now I feel like we have to address the elephant in the room.
Sure.
Talking about TikTok, it's been in the news lately. Probably
Mhm.
lots of people, if they're watching this video, means they're interested in TikTok and say that so they know that there was a bill passed in the House, but yet to go to the Senate that would require TikTok's Chinese parent company to sell TikTok to an American company.
Mhm.
So, who knows if that's going to get passed in the Senate, and if so, when? All up in the air, but it must be on your mind as a TikTok content creator that could have an impact on your business. So, how do you already have kind of a plan in place how you would pivot if TikTok experienced like a sudden decline or it was just totally an outright ban? Do you know how you might what you might do instead?
Sure. So most definitely it's been on my mind and many other creators' minds. I to kind of piggyback on the last question, I
Mhm.
definitely am trying to focus more on content that will work on other platforms.
Okay.
And so hitting that, that 90 seconds or less target for me is really important because I tend to be chatty. So I need to chop it down so it will work elsewhere. And also, it is forcing me to do more research on the other algorithms for Instagram. I actually have a fairly decent following on Facebook. I have just over 20,000 followers there, which, for Facebook is
It's
fairly
pretty good.
decent.
Yeah.
Um, so I do get some engagement. Actually, I get a lot of engagement. I just don't get very many leads from Facebook.
Mhm.
So I need to start figuring out what that would look like. Instagram, not great at it. I don't create content that's pretty and aesthetic to go with the Instagram algorithm, but I'm definitely researching and trying to do a little bit more of that. But really, what I'm actually looking turning, lemons into lemonade or whatever the saying is. Um, I have always wanted to do long form content.
Mm.
And this may just be what I need to force me to try to post legitimate YouTube videos.
Mhm.
Um, and those I think would be really helpful because I could easily integrate them into my BombBomb account for video emails, marketing,
Mhm.
different ways to cross promote that aren't necessarily just social media based. So that's my goal for myself this year, regardless of what happens with TikTok.
That makes sense. I just actually saw, you and I talked about this a little bit, and then this weekend I saw an article in the New York Times about what happened when India banned TikTok a few years ago for various geopolitical reasons that won't go into it
Sure.
here. But, there were a lot of creators that were not sure what they were going to do, but most of them found a home on another platform and were able to, the viewers went to those other platforms. They didn't say, well, no TikTok, then I'm not going to consume video anymore. They went to YouTube, they went to other more local apps that were created. So I
Mhm.
think, it's probably scary for a lot of people, but the next big thing would come along and people would go there. So
Yes. Yes, definitely.
just kind of to wrap this up, what is your advice for loan officers who want to get started with TikTok, but they're a little bit scared and they don't know how to get started?
I would say the best thing to do or best things to do would be to create that list. Create a list of questions that you are tired of answering or random facts that you wish the average borrower knew that would make both their transaction easier and your life easier. And then once you have that, start by making, and I recommend batch filming if you can, have 6 videos on board before you post anything, because you are more likely to stick with this if you have consistency and you have engagement. So if you have 6 videos ready to go, that's just 3 videos for 2 weeks. You will have a much higher likelihood of actually staying engaged if you have something ready to post. It
Mhm.
gets really, really hard when you allow yourself to completely dry out with content. So always have something ready. But I mean, it's honestly, our industry creates content ideas. Our industry every single day. I mean, there's always something that happens that is worth sharing, even if it's just a terrible interaction that you've had with a borrower or a lead. Um, People love hearing kind of insider information. They love hearing about the process. They love hearing story times. So it doesn't always have to be educational, but there needs to be some value and some reason why you're sharing it.
That totally makes sense, and I think, to that point, we often forget there's so much education to be done in the mortgage
Mhm.
industry to borrowers, to referral partners, and you think if you put it out once, "Well, I covered that, I can't cover it again."
Right. Yep.
Nobody remembers that you covered it. You have new followers, maybe you could
Yep.
do a new twist or you could even repost. That education is just always happening with everybody. It's a cycle.
100%. I mean, like I had shared earlier, the majority of my leads come from TikTok. And even though they have found me on TikTok and they watched some of my educational content, sure enough, they're still going to ask me questions that I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I already have a video for this. And instead of getting frustrated, it gives me the opportunity to share my video. So I'll reply to them with a little text or something and say, I know this is silly, but here's a video that might help explain this a little bit better. And they love that. And
Mhm.
it helps them continue to be engaged. It gives me something to share, and then it kind of gets them back into the rabbit hole of watching more videos. So it's to benefit both them and the loan officer, of course.
Awesome. I think great nuggets in here for any loan officer who's thinking about getting started with social media or TikTok specifically. And maybe, this could be considered long form, Mandy. So you could post our
There you
conversation.
go.
It's, 15 minutes or more.
Yep.
For both of us stretching our legs a little bit on longer content.
Yep.
So I really appreciate you joining us at LO Hub and MGIC and sharing your insights.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Liz.